This session for everyone that is watching is about how to maximise real-time leads from property listings. Should we do some intros? I feel like makes sense. So I'm Sophie Trotman and I'm the marketing manager for Folio London. Folio London is the build-to-rent private rent sector of Notting Hill Genesis, the big housing association. We look after just over 3,000 properties across London. And we have a mixture of PRS units as well as big build-to-rent schemes as well. Do obviously lots of marketing that surrounds that, as there's a lot of homes that we have to get off the market. But yeah, that's me. Over to you.
Thanks, Sophie. Yeah, so my name's Lisa Gray and I am the webinar manager here at Rightmove. I'm sure most of you have heard of Rightmove and who we are and what we do. But basically, I've been working here at Rightmove for the last 13 years. I've got lots of expertise in terms of helping estate and letting agents with their property marketing, getting the most out of, winning more instructions, letting more, generating more leads. So there's lots and lots of things that I can hopefully help you with today. So do feel free to type in any questions as we go through as well.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. So that's like the first point to discuss. I've got on here, so best practices for property media in terms of our photos, floor plans, videos, 360. Do you want to kick off and then I can?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in terms of when it comes to your property photos, floor plans, videos as well is another thing that we need to factor in now where COVID has happened, and your descriptions. And I think, Sophie, when we were talking in preparation for today, we were on about generating more leads around descriptions, but actually from our research that we've carried out, it's all about photos. That's what's most important to tenants, when they're looking for their next property. So my first top tip is just to make sure that you've got really good quality photos on that you're marketing for your listings. We recommend at least a minimum of 5 photos. So that's my next sort of tip. And I also often get asked, well, what's the maximum number of photos that we should put on there? And I have to say, I have seen a property on Rightmove with over 100 photos. I think that's probably going to the.
What were they taking pictures of the radios?
Well, exactly. There is that problem, isn't there, when you've got a huge property and you've got too much to share. So just and if you've got a room, maybe only put 1 photo of that room on. You don't need to put all 20 different angles of that room. Go with the best is what I would say. What is the best quality? So yes, that's my advice around photos. The other thing is that on letting properties now, a floor plan is an absolute must. It used to be one of those nice to haves, but not necessarily a must have. Again, times have changed and tenants want to see floor plans because, again, going back to some of our research, they've told us that, now in the next 12 months, they're looking for a property that's bigger. So being able to see a floor plan, the sizes of a room, especially if they're not, a little bit nervous about going out and viewing a property, being able to have photos, floor plans, a video, to be able to make a really informed decision before physically going out and viewing it is the best way forward. So that's my advice on floor plans. I don't know if there's anything. I'm just going off on a tangent, Sophie.
I mean, to be honest, I would totally agree with everything you said. I will do the sort of other side of I totally understand when being like a developer or working and you have say 3,000 properties, it's so hard for us. Pictures is really hard for us to put relevant photos up all the time for all 3,000 properties when I've got a small team of 3 people that do the advert. For them to know all 3,000 properties is so hard. So my tip would be disclaimer everything as well. So always the best thing is if you've got a block, you always have types. So my suggestion would be put up the type that you've got within that block. If you're launching a big scale block, put up your type and then disclaimer that we do have lots of properties available. in this scheme, this is just one. Speak to your lettings negotiator, have a chat with them, and put up floor plan booklets as well. So like, if there is more than one, do put up like a few and say there is lots of types within this development, because that's sort of like, I think the hardest thing, especially my team find, like if we have like maybe 6 or 7 properties, they've got to then know all those properties, and they're not going in and doing the viewings and getting to know those properties. So I think it's really important to have like disclaimers on things as well. And I think I totally understand like the photos are the most important, because I was kind of thinking the other day, like when you go into a shop, the first thing you look at is like the shop window, and then you see something and you're like, oh, I'm going to go in, and then you look at the price, and then you read the description of what it is, and then you do that. And it's exactly the same with property advertising. It's literally just like having a look. Oh, I like the look of that. That looks pretty. And then you want to know more. So it's definitely having photos, and relevant photos as well. Don't always, it's so tempting to put your show home pictures up. But if the scheme is 4 or 5 years old and you're putting your show home pictures up, and then the lettings team are taking them in and it's actually 5 years old, the tenant's not going to be very happy. So looking at doing like creative, clever things with, okay, so now it's 5 years on. We've done some things recently where we've taken photos of the property 5 years on, and we've CGI'd like soft furnishings in. So it's got all the furniture, even though the furniture's slightly older and stuff, and we've CGI'd like nice quilts and pillows and all of that stuff in. So really, it's really cheap for a marketing strategy, really cheap, but it just shows it's not quite that show home that it was 5 years ago, but it still can be pretty and still like is a nice home. So it is just a balance.
It absolutely is. And would you say that you found from your experience that having, you know, furniture in a room is better than having it? Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I'm terrible as well, even just me, like personally. Like if I look at a room, I'm like, oh, great, like that looks nice. But I'm a visual person. I see things to believe things. So if someone puts, it's a bit lazy really, but if someone shows me this is where your sofa can go and this is where this can go and it will look really nice, I automatically like it more. Like I automatically, it's that sort of like kind of on the, it's given to you on a plate. Like it's that sort of thing where you look at it and you go, I can see myself living there. And I think having empty flat, I mean, you just scroll past. It sounds awful, but I just think you would. Like I really do. You can't sort of feel that lifestyle coming from the pictures or the 360s or whatever, and that's such a big thing, especially in renting. So yeah, that would be my tip. And same with floor plans, exactly the same as what you said. Just making sure they're on there, because again, they're like super important. And I think as well, like doing all of that, we found a massive shift in the quality of our leads. So when we, like before, we used to advertise all our properties and try and do like all of them all at once. All, like practically we had like at one point 400 adverts live on Rightmove. It was mad for like all our schemes, because we were trying to just advertise all our voids. And then we were like, you know what, we've actually got strategies, like strategize this, make it a bit more sort of, this is what we've got available in each, like come and talk to us, do the type. And our lead quality has improved so much. So people understand, if you're a large scale like business, that you're not going to show every single property. They get that, they're not angry. As long as you've got all the information on there to say that, you've got good photos that are relevant, and you've got your floor plans which show what's going on within that development, the quality of your leads is going to be 10 times better. So I totally agree. I think it's really, really important.
Yeah, well, I mean, going back to some of the, you know, the sort of research that, you know, we've done here at Rightmove, and, you know, we look at sort of the best 5% of agents on Rightmove, and they get 72% more detail views per property by having, you know, a floor plan and at least 5 photos, and they were getting 102% more leads than you've just said, you know, but it's better quality leads as well, as you've mentioned, but also they're letting properties quicker. So there just isn't any excuse now. You know, make sure you've got your photos, your floor plan, a really good description, and the steer has now gone towards, you know, properties that have got gardens and
outdoor space
and an office, or a room that they can turn into an office. So again, if you're thinking about what order should I put my photos in, if you have got an office, lead with that photo, because we literally just did some consumer research at the beginning of this month. And the reason for that, they told us that the reason that they told us that they wanted a bigger home.
Yeah.
And then when we delved into, okay, so what is the reason for wanting a bigger home? And the big top things that came out was a bigger kitchen, bigger living room, more bedrooms, and that they wanted
the dog.
yeah, and they wanted an office. So it's all about space. So if you've got that with your, you know, the property that you're renting out, you know, they're the things to be shouting out about: the space, the garden, whether it's got an office, you know, and lots of bedrooms, basically, apparently. I think that's so they can have one as an office. But that's what's appealing to tenants right now, and that's their reasoning that they gave in the next 12 months as to the type of property that they're looking to rent. So if you've got that to offer, that's what you should be focusing in on and talking about in your descriptions about a property as well, and really emphasizing on those. I don't know whether you've also seen that.
Yeah, I think it's quality over quantity all the time. And like we were getting, when we were advertising all our properties, we were literally getting like over 1,000 leads a week, which is just insane. Like if you think we've only got 3,000 properties like across London, we're getting like 1,000 a week, and they were great. Obviously, like that's amazing stats, but at the same time, not all those thousands were quite right. So now we've refined it, and we're probably getting between 700, which is still a lot, 700 to 800, but it just cuts out that crap basically of like the people that aren't just quite right. And it just means that the team, when they do pick up the phone or they are looking in the inbox, then they're like, oh, that's a hot lead, I can pick that up straight away. And I was like panicking, obviously being in marketing, I was like, my figures. But the lettings team were like, no, it's better. Like, I know it seems like a drop, but it's actually better. So I think sometimes you can't focus on like quantity all the time. Like you do have to look at quality as well.
Yeah. And how are you finding that you're deciding what's a good lead and what with on the basis that there's so many coming through?
So many. I mean, for us, really, it depends on what scheme. So we've got like lots of different schemes at lots of different price points across the whole of London. So we might have a scheme that we've got properties, say, from May onwards, like 2 weeks into May. So if we've got people that are like, oh, I want to move in August, we're like, oh, well, we might not have any properties. We might, but we might not. So they would obviously take that as, it's not quite a hot lead, but they'll put it into the database and say, if there are some left in August, obviously, we'll have you. But it's all about like the moving dates really, and like making sure that the moving dates are right. And one of the things we sort of do struggle with is there's always a thing between lettings and marketing of, oh, let's get the ads up now, even though the development's 2 months away, and you kind of put on your coming soon listings and you're like, oh, it's coming soon. But that's my pet peeve, because I think that when you launch a development, like the first couple of weeks are like the time when it's like absolutely like in the limelight. It's new on the like Rightmove, people are looking at it, especially if they're looking constantly. So if it's coming soon and you put it on 3-4 months before with renting, and people have handed in their notice and need something for a week, it's lost that traction by the time you get to all those hot leads. So it is really important to like balance up when you put your adverts on as well. And like it is hard. It's hard when you've got buildings coming over of like 200 like flat. Obviously the lettings team want to get ahead of the game, which is absolutely, like, you understand that, but there's also that balance of, well, I think we'll actually do better if we just give it a bit longer.
Yeah.
Would you say you found that with like your research and stuff?
Yeah, so I mean, often, I mean, you get the instant property alerts that go out, and you see this coming soon, and you've just touched upon this, you know, there's no images, and you know, these go out to millions of people. And then what happens is a week or two later, the photos then suddenly appear on this property. And
it's already gone down the pages as well.
And it's just, you know, it's gone out. It doesn't go back out on those email alerts again. You don't get a second chance at doing this. You know, it goes out and that's it, you know, unless you reduce the property by 2%, then it will go back out again on Rightmove. But yeah, you've just missed out on a huge amount of opportunities. That first week is when all the eyes are on that property, because an instant alert's gone out. It's a shiny new property come onto the market that might be of interest to me. And yeah, just this coming soon, and I see it all the time. So this is why it's a big bugbear for me. You know, I'm just like, don't upload or market your properties until you have all the information. And I know that there are some landlords on here today. So if you're obviously, you know, working with a letting agent, you know, don't push them to put it onto the market until you've got all that information. And that's why, because that first week is the most important week. As the weeks go on, hopefully it's let, but if it does continue to trickle on, the interest level starts to dip off. And that's when I would start to question, you know, is it marketed properly, you know, and is it priced correctly? They're normally the two big players as to why a property hasn't rented out property. So I would be going back and looking at how's this comparing to similar properties on the market, you know, what's the quality of those photos? Is it appealing, or is it a bit, you know, it can be difficult when you've got tenants in situ, and obviously in your instance it's very different. But if you have got tenants in situ trying to take photos, but you know, we're in a world now where we can't be making excuses for not having good
Photoshop. It's so true. It is so true. And we find as well, like, totally agree with that. So like we'll put like our pictures up, we'll launch things, and if we're like, oh, it's struggling a little bit and we're not sure why, the first thing we do is we go in and look at the marketing. So that's the first thing. And I'm like, right, review it. So has it got the right description, photos, floor plans, like we spoke about before? Then we leave it for a little bit and see, like, okay, hopefully it'll pick up. If it doesn't, then what we do is we go into Rightmove Plus and we look in the back end and we start looking at our analytics and say, okay, great. Well, we know people are clicking on it and they're interested in it, but they're not hovering long enough. So maybe it's something to do with the price. Maybe it's out of their price range. And we look at all the analytics and then we bring that together and go to the letting team and say, look, it's not our marketing, but we might need to look at some of the other things, which is like the letters be like price, and then if we adjust that, usually we find it flies. So quite a lot of the time, price is such a big factor at the moment, especially obviously with COVID. It's obviously been really big.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, there's just such a huge demand, you know, across sales and on lettings. I know obviously today's lettings focus, but yeah, demand is so high, you know, and stock is relatively, you know, low, and so that's only going to push you know, rents up, unfortunately, for tenants. But it's we're not seeing any form of like crash or anything in terms of prices, which we often get asked about. So
imagine like predict what's going to happen. Like you can't see the future.
That's it.
Of interest, so a bit of a question from me actually is, do you think advertising with a CGI is good or not? So obviously we spoke about the coming soon campaigns, and my sort of way to combat that is I get CGIs made. So obviously I won't launch it too far ahead, like you said, we missed the boat. But I'll get CGIs made, and CGIs now, honestly, I swear to God, I look at them sometimes and I'm like, that's a photo. It's mad how good they are. So we get really high quality CGIs made, and we put those on if it's like 2 months away and we don't quite yet have the show home photos. What would you sort of say? Would you say that's a good thing? Would you say that you see CGIs do worse, or is it the quality of the CGIs?
To be honest, I don't really have. I haven't ever been asked that question before, so I don't really know, Sophie. But I mean, I can look into it. I just think having a photo on a property is better than not having anything. You know, you want people to click in. So I think, from my own personal opinion, I would say it's not a bad thing to do. From my point of view, I think it is definitely better to have them than not.
Yeah. Definitely. And I guess, like I said, like with so many CGIs now being literally like actual photographs, it's quite scary. It does sort of help, because I reckon half the time people can't tell anyway if it's a photo or a CGI. I know I'm like that sometimes. I'm literally like, God, it's so good. But yeah, that's good. And then one thing as well that I had, so we obviously advertise in like 2 different ways. So we advertise with our big build to rent schemes, like I said, where we have let's say we'll get a handover of say 60 units in a block, and we'll use that advertising strategy of marketing certain units within that block, and that works really, really well. Then we have the other side of our business, which is more like the PRS side, and that's sort of like that's a bit more like, I guess, like a landlord that would be on this call today. So that's specific properties, and you might only have one available in a scheme that launched 3-4 years ago, or two, or maybe a handful. And again, like, that's where sometimes we struggle with the photos. So like, sometimes they're tenanted. So what we've had to do is we've had to like go in, get photos, and then, like I said, do some photoshopping or do some CGI rendering on top. And that's actually worked really well for us, because sometimes the way the tenants live in the properties, like,
yes,
no judgment, but sometimes the way tenants live in the properties is not what you want to have online. And obviously for me, like, being so precious of our brand,
of course,
like, when I look at things like that, I'm like, absolutely not. Like, they'll come to me with these photos and I'm like, it's not going online. We'll need to take it through CGI rendering first. So I guess that's like another thing that I guess you'd say is important as well. Like,
absolutely, yeah. And I would say, you know, don't just put photos on for the sake of it. If it does look horrendous, it's not going to make your brand look very good at all. And obviously you've just said you're very precious over, you know, how it comes across. And also, if you want to win, you know, win more instructions or win more landlords, you know, to list with you, then you know, your property marketing has got to be on point, you know. And you know, if they're trawling through, like, looking on Rightmove, you know, looking at what agents are doing, have they got good photos, floor plans and stuff, it's just not going to be giving off a very good impression. So yeah, absolutely do what you do. And I think when a tenant moves out as well, there's an opportunity at that point, you know, to take some decent photos and have them in the bank ready for if that property then comes up for rent again. And then you've got photos, especially if that house is a bit messy, which I know sometimes tenants can care a little bit less than but not all tenants are bad.
No, just in case there's any on here.
No, I mean, I'm a tenant myself, so, you know, and I'd like to think I'm a good tenant, and I look after, you know, and I do treat it like my home. And there are, you know, there are lots of really great tenants out there. So I just think there's just a small percentage where I imagine it's difficult, but don't let those ones affect, you know, the good work that, you know, that you do out there. So your brand is precious. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm absolutely like, no way. If anything affects the brand, I'm like, I can't let that happen. Yeah.
So pictures of toilets and, you know, kitchens with
I've seen some ones in my time.
Washing up and clothes hanging everywhere, beds
not even made.
They're a no. I mean, you'll may get publicity on it, but
all
for the wrong reasons.
You'll end up on a Twitter thread somewhere like, have you seen this?
Absolutely. Yeah, and there's been many. I have to say, I think the most recent one was a purple house, so every room was purple. But
I love it.
Yeah, it's interesting, but yeah, people do pick up on things, so just be careful. It's for the right reasons and not the wrong.
Definitely. Cool. Do we have any questions? Yeah. I think we're on the question bit now, but I need to see if we've got.
I think I've just seen one come in around virtual. Was it about virtuals?
I've got to find the questions button.
Technology and all that.
Yeah, I know. How embarrassing, working in marketing. Questions. Here we go. Oh, so I think people are using the Slido tab now. I can't see any questions yet. Can you?
On Slido, let's have a look. Let me just have a look on Slido. So Q&A. So the question. So we've had a question saying, do you think many agents have invested in virtual tour technology and tours, or is it just a few?
I can answer that one and say that since the pandemic, the amount of 360s I've gone and ordered is insane. Like, literally, honestly, before like the lockdown was coming in and everyone was just like a bit worried about the lockdown, we just went out and we practically did a whole stock.
Right.
And I have to say, it was way worth it. It was way worth it because the lettings team now use them all the time. And we find now as well, since the pandemic, like so many people are really happy to just see a 360 and go, yeah, no, I'm happy with that, and actually rent off of that. I mean, in sales, it might be a little bit different. Obviously, if you want to go and see it before you buy it, I get that. But I think with renting and the flexibility you have around renting now, 360 is just so important. And they're not expensive either. Like if you get a good company, you do them in bulk, you can get discounts. I think they're way worth it. Like I would never launch a scheme now without getting 360s done of every apartment.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I think someone just actually asked what have you found, which tool is the easiest for agents to use for a 360? I don't know from your experience which one
Yeah,
you're using.
I use a company called Spec. I think they're just called SPEC, they're just Spec. And they do like virtual brochures. So when we get a development, or if we've got a few voids, we'll send them out. They'll send out like, I think they call them like surveyors. They go in, they take floor plan, they do floor plan, photos, 360, all in one. And it's something like, I want to say 60 quid. So per property, which really isn't that expensive. And obviously if you do it in bulk, you can look at more. Also Photo Planner, another good agent we use to do some of our photos. So yeah, those would be the two people that I would recommend. Definitely.
Yeah, I guess those that are tuning in, taking the time out to watch, if you're using anybody that might help some of the other audience, then feel free to share in there as well, because it's useful. And but yeah, I mean, from my from Rightmove's point of view, I know that videos they're the norm now. They're an absolute another thing that floor plans should be an absolute must. And now I think videos is getting to a point where, and I think they are the future, and being able to offer, a video so somebody can make an informed decision, but also it's that safety side of things as well. If you're getting lots and lots of inquiries through, you're able to then, even through Rightmove now, do an online viewing. They can watch the video and then they can decide, yes, I do want to go and physically view it, or I don't. And then you're just, rather than getting 20 people coming around and viewing a property, you've managed to get it down to, like, I don't know, 8 as an example. And that's just through having a video. So my advice would be absolutely, if you can do videos, then do them, because people are still nervous out there. We're getting to a point where we're not in a full lockdown anymore, but people are still nervous, and I imagine that you guys are as well, going and showing people around homes as well. So if we can try and dwindle those numbers down in terms of the number of viewings you're doing, then videos is the way to do that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it just offers just an option. So if people are feeling uncomfortable, then we're like, okay, no problem, here's a tour. You can sit on your sofa and take a tour. You don't even need one of our negotiators, and call us up when you're done and ask us any questions. And I think they're really good. I think they're really good.
And it used to be, back in the day, it used to be, don't put too much information on because we want the phone to ring, I want people to inquire on it. Now you're just getting so many inquiries. You want to get rid of, not time wasters, but people that are asking, oh, have you got a picture of this? Or can you tell me this? Or, whatever it is, And so the more information you can supply tenants with now, the better. So that you're only getting the serious tenants and not the time wasters.
Definitely. And I think that's what kind of COVID actually did, it sounds awful, as a positive for us. It sped up that process of that was starting to come about, like 360s and videos and stuff. It was around, but it was much more traditional, like pick up the phone, go for a viewing, like deal with it like that. And since COVID, the shift has been absolutely phenomenal, honestly. Like, it's been insane. And I think that's one positive that we can take away from the pandemic, that it has meant that we've been able to digitize a lot of our offering, especially within marketing. So I think that's the positive. Have we got any more questions? Also, I think this one's for me. So can you please comment, or it might be for you guys as well, can you please comment on holding data on your database about leads that you cannot offer a property to today from a GDPR perspective? So my comment on that would be I don't know if this is who this is from, but have a CRM system, and make sure you're double opting in from a GDPR perspective. So we filter all our leads through a CRM system, and that CRM system is completely GDPR compliant. So anytime then our negotiators contact them, so whether they've come from social media, Rightmove, anywhere, they come through into our CRM. Our negotiators contact them through there, and then if for some reason they're not interested, they come off the database, and that's it. They're never then contacted again, because everyone in our CRM system is completely GDPR compliant. And it's all like everything on, like when you fill out a Rightmove form, when you fill out our website form, you have to double opt in and do all the GDPR sort of compliances. So that would be what I would say a CRM system is the absolute sort of goal with that, to make sure, because I mean if you're doing it off spreadsheets or like it's a bit dodgy and it can go very wrong and you can end up with complaints. Trying to do it through MailChimp or something like that, it's just never the same. So a CRM is absolutely essential, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best advice I would give. GDPR is such a difficult one, but
every time someone mentions it, I'm like, the devil.
We're actually doing some modular training courses on GDPR. Well, we will have some coming up, so check out the Rightmove Hub if you're a customer, because we've got some modular training on GDPR coming up. So hopefully that will help with answering that question for you as well, because it's an absolute minefield, isn't it?
It is.
What you can and can't do. And
exactly, yeah. And sometimes you can overlook it as well. Like, and as long as you're doing what you're supposed to do within your field as well. Like obviously marketing is really important. So as long as I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, ticking all the boxes, then I'm just like, we're good.
Yeah.
Cool. Do we have any more questions? I feel like we answered the school one and the virtual tour one. Answered about COVID. Oh, do you think the hype will die down? I think we kind of answered that, didn't we? Like, now we've kind of switched into this. I mean, it's technology, it's advancing, and I think like one of the scary things the other day is like I was talking to someone, I was like, probably one day we'll have viewings where you just put on a pair of goggles and you're walking around and like we'll literally take like virtual reality to the absolute max. So I don't think the hype will die down. I think if anything it's going to progress more, and it's probably going to get a lot scarier and madder that you can probably do that. But I mean, you look at like video games, and you like when I now go to look at when I go to the architect headquarters, when I'm looking at the designs for our flat, they put the goggles on me, and I go around and I virtual tour and see it, and that is absolutely insane, and also makes you feel a bit far sick. Heads up. But yeah, I think it's not going to die down. I'd say it's only going to sort of progress forward.
Yeah,
sort of thing.
Definitely.
Other than property media and better information from property listings, what are some things a tenant could do to become a better lead? Oh, that's an interesting question.
What could a tenant do?
So I think from a tenant's perspective, I think all you need to do is be transparent. I think that's probably the best thing I could say. From obviously I don't work in lettings, but I've worked very closely with the lettings team. And I think their bugbear is when people are a bit cagey, like not really giving them their budget because they're like, oh, I don't really want to say what my budget is. Well, we're here to help. So we need to know your budget. We need to know that you're happy in East and you absolutely don't want to live in North London or whatever it is. Give as much information as possible. I think when you keep your cards close to your chair, it makes it very difficult for the lettings negotiators to help you. So I just need to be as honest as possible. I think that's honestly the best way.
Yeah, and I'm going to play devil's advocate, because I would also say from a letting agent point of view, make sure you're reading what the tenant is asking or telling you, and make sure that you're responding in the right way. So if the tenant is telling you, I am looking for a property, a 2-bedroom with XYZ, and then you add them to the CRM system, and then you start marketing to them with 1-bedroom properties. Yeah. It's so frustrating, and it's another thing that happens all the time. Listen to what tenants are asking you for, because you never know, that tenant could be a landlord.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. I would agree with that. What other questions do we have? Or is the thing easiest tool? I think we may have done them all. Unless anyone's got any more questions. I mean,
yeah,
fire away. We're here to answer. No question was a silly question.
No, absolutely not. I think the other thing we maybe didn't touch upon was around the CPRs as well, when it comes to sort of marketing a property, and just making sure that, you know, you're not hiding anything, or I suppose like even with photos and things like that, and taking things out of a property, and then the tenant gets there and they're like, hang on a minute, there's this, you know, big whatever it is outside the property. So just be careful with things like that, and being transparent from all angles, you know, writing.
That's the key, isn't it?
Not hiding things, you know, especially if you're doing video tours as well. You know, don't hide if there's a crack in the wall, you know, show it, you know, because you're trying to get through a lot of inquiries, you know, and goes back to that point of, you know, you want the best quality leads to handle. Yeah,
definitely. I think transparency is probably the best thing on both sides. Like you said, like it's all about the tenants being transparent, but actually, like, the agents need to be transparent as well, or the landlords, or whoever it is that's marketing the property. They also just need to make sure that honesty is key. Is my advice.
Yeah, definitely.
Because otherwise you look a bit stupid as well, and it also reflects badly on marketing, and brand image, because no one trusts a brand that isn't honest. So if you, and that goes for, like, you know, whatever brand you are, whether you are a landlord that only has a few properties, you still got a brand, you've still got an image to kind of keep up and maintain. Same as if you're an agent, and if you show properties and then they go in and they're like, definitely not what I saw online. It just looks awful. Looks really bad, and it can really affect, you know, the brand image, and it's not worth it. It's definitely worth it. Better be honest. Cool. So I don't think 7 questions. I don't know if we've got another one popped in.
I think is there, although I think we out of time now.
Oh, well,
don't know. Are we allowed to?
Oh, it's closing in 1 minute. You're right.
Have we got time? Is there another question? Have we got time to quickly answer it?
I don't think it's come through. I think I might have just miscounted. We got 1 minute, so I feel like, thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you obviously for having us as well.
Exactly.
For those organising, and thank you for watching. And if you've got any questions or you want to speak to us, you know, separately, offline, then get in touch. You know, happy to help with anything that you need help with.
100%. Same with me. I think I've got my LinkedIn up here.
Yes.
So that was quite clever of me. I'm quite proud of that one. For YouTube, I like subscribe below. But yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.